Hello, welcome to the Kart World Championship Grand Final in Portugal. This took place on the hottest day of the year. Not the hottest day of the year, but the hottest day of the championship, that's for sure. It was like 37 degrees at least. Really, really hot. Obviously 1v1 match races again to decide our karts and where we started. I managed to beat George Suarez in the first match-up race. He eventually went on to finish P4 overall in the standings, so that was a great result. But then we lost to one of the Blue Star drivers. But here we go for the start. Again, always going to be slightly elbows out for these first few corners. Surrounded by talent. Obviously this is now a step above what we had in the semi-final. A lot of good drivers. Got Ruben ahead there, Tobias, got Michael, Rico further up ahead. These are all drivers who very much know what they're doing when it comes to driving a kart. More so than drivers in the UK. These guys are very, very competitive and they always strive for perfection. So, and this grid is just full of it. So we can only do our best. It was very fun to battle all these drivers. Obviously, drivers that wouldn't usually race. So going against new talent is always welcome. And all getting a bit out of shape going into this, through the chicane. Karts everywhere. Got Ramon on the left, and we've got a driver in the white and blue just shuffling past everyone there. And Michael shows him the door, and Ramon is also looking to show him the door. And obviously I know Ramon quite well from BRKC, so yeah, let's work together for what it's worth. Our first job, of course, will be to get through past Michael, who has got a really daft kart, probably one of the worst karts in this race, no doubt. And Ramon goes up the inside. I should have just been able to follow him through, but I just went in a bit too hot, slid a little bit too much. Now I've got this driver in the white and blue again, very close by. Quite a few people. Well, we're quite stretched out already. I see this driver going for a move. There's just no point fighting it, really. I mean, yeah, there's just no point. We've already seen his move from half a lap ago. It wasn't exactly like it was tactical. He was just chuck it down the inside. So I knew if I was to defend or anything, he would still go for it. And there's no point anyway. I knew his kart was good. Yeah, I went into this day. Actually feeling pretty under the weather, I won't lie. I felt quite ill, and it just so happened to be the most intensive day in terms of track time and intensive day in terms of temperature. It was really, really tough. A really tough day physically and mentally, and I was losing weight quicker than I'd ever done in my life. Usually when I go up on the scales for my weighted events, I can pretty much predict what weight I'd be before what weight I'd be after my races. But after this, I mean, even after the match races, and that's just 2 quali laps, I was losing a decent amount of weight, literally going on the scales at 90.0, 90.1, so very close to being underweight. But we were on the weight, luckily. I've never got that wrong, always been correct on weight. And this was a really tough day. It probably didn't help that I was quite ill and didn't really want to eat too much either. But we're through past Michael, a nice little undercut there, but obviously we had the power to power through. This driver ahead definitely will be looking to get past Ramon. I was pointing at my pedal there. There's a decent delay on the throttle, and yeah, it meant I couldn't go on the power. Couldn't go on the power as soon as I would have liked, which makes a massive difference in these karts. And here we go again. We've been able to catch up to these two in about half a lap. And I'm not really looking to make any moves right now. As you can see, Ramon's kart's pretty bottom end strong. Mine was a bit better once you got up to speed and you were focusing more on straight line speed. There's a lot of battling going up ahead as well. And sure enough, if those people keep on battling, we will catch up. This race was, I want to say 45 minutes long. I think it may have been 45 minutes long. It was really, really long, especially in this sunshine. My God, it was very difficult, and again, everything was just more difficult for me because of having to lug my weights around after every qualifying lap, of having to, well, do all of it while being ill as well. It just was not a good day for me, but I tried to not let it distract me. And I think we've been driving somewhat okay in this race so far, albeit early days. And yeah, the point is, the aim is really just to catch up to this group ahead now and decide what we're going to do on strategy. As though it was different in this race, you had to make 2 stops instead of 1 stop. So 2 stops now, so you can kind of play around with the strategy a little bit more. I think Ramon just checking where I am. Especially as we'll probably look to pit out of this, because it's just it's a bit chaotic, and yeah, we're going to be costing ourselves time otherwise. And there's 2 stops anyway, so even if you feel like you could have pitted at a better time the first time round, you still got that second time. And then in front of Ramon here we have Vika Schleds, who it's got to be one of the best junior drivers out there. I believe he won the junior category as well for this event, so he knew what he was doing. Still got a few drivers behind us, but definitely more drivers in front than behind. Vika goes in pits, so that leaves Ramon and I, and a little bit of a gap to try and catch up George, Ruben and the other driver in white and blue. As you can see, they're on the dirt now, side by side, getting aggressive for whatever reason. You know, there's still God knows how much time left on this race. Ruben goes for an undercut here on this driver ahead. And Ramon gets by this driver in the white and blue. I would have liked to have followed through, but I couldn't. Also got this other driver here who would like to go past as well. And yeah, this driver in the white and blue was never patient. He always wanted to re-overtake, and I think that started to bother Ramon a little bit. I think Ramon wanted to pit and work together in pit, and I definitely agree that was a good idea, especially as we're now stuck in a train. So I'm putting my hand up, warning those behind, and yeah, we're definitely going to pit this lap and work together that way. Obviously, both teams we're racing for are British, so we'll happily work together. So storming into the pits we go. In for our first stop. And coming out again. Be interested to see where we come out. So I'll let Ramon lead the way. Come out just behind Vika and Tobias. So yeah, definitely not short on talent. Ramon himself, a very talented driver. And now it's all about what we can do. And if we can just get through these drivers, or even get these drivers to help us pull us forwards, because who knows, some of these drivers might have pretty good cars, so if you stay in the tow, you'll get pulled quite far up the grid. So now I just needed to drive pretty close to Ramon so I could push him at pretty much every opportunity possible. Really, really close. And obviously you have to be careful in moments like this, because a slight tap on the rear, especially like corners like this, and really unsettles the karts, because the handling was just, I don't know, just geared that way, where if it goes slightly wrong, it will go very wrong. There was not really any in between. If you're sliding wide, you are sliding very wide. It's just no way of catching the kart in that sense, which really made it difficult. as we can see, it's quite a good kart pair up here to work together. He's got the bottom end, which helps me keep up. I've got the top end. Chaos in the pit lane on the right there. 4 drivers coming out. So yeah, we're still in a good position, goodish position. We're not last right now. And Ramon's gearing up this move on Tobias, and we're definitely looking to follow through. And yeah, that works for us. And we'll carry on as we were. Thanking Tobias if he cares about my my thanks. And again, this is a good example here of a slight tap to Ramon. And what I realised with Ramon's car is he was definitely struggling for handling. Yeah, he just couldn't get the power down as soon as he would like, especially around, around all the corners really, both right-handers and left-handers, especially long right-handers and left-handers. For hairpins he was fine. For anything that required more, he struggled. And yeah, we're staying nice and close. We're working together, try and see if we can reel those ahead. It's a very long race in the bright sunshine. God, it would have been nice not to have had to wear a suit for this. Following along closely then. Difficult to gauge whether we are actually catching those ahead or not, but we are for sure trying. They both look to be driving quite fast ahead. And yeah, as you can see, driving very, very close to Ramon. And unfortunately, it can't always be perfect. I think Ramon slows a lot for that corner, and that will eventually is going to catch me out. But for now it was going well, but it was always going to. Yeah, well, it wasn't always going to, but I think with one of us struggling for handling, it was going to catch each other out at some point. And it doesn't really look like we're gaining on those ahead. As you can see, once the slipstream gets going, you really can gain a lot of speed and push that driver ahead. So by this point we're pretty settled. If anything, a bit of floppy driving from me. It's getting to that point in the week. We've done so many laps of this track now, you're very, very tired. Myself, I had to carry this 40 kg seat a number of times on the weighing scales, before match-up races, after every match race. It did all add up. And yeah, going into this corner here, I feel like I've braked at a good time, but Ramon seemed to just keep slowing and slowing and slowing. I've tapped the back of him, he slid everywhere, and it's cost us so much time. I'm obviously very sorry for that, but Ramon's keen to crack on with it. But obviously what that did do is not fill the drivers behind with much confidence. And it was always coming that Tobias was going to give it a go. And wanted to kind of just exchange positions, just take the lead for a change. And that's always quite, especially with how I'm driving now, I mean, it's beyond rubbish. Just making mistakes. It's got to my head, which it doesn't usually do. But in this instance it did. I feel like I've been letting the side down a little bit. And sure enough, after that, Tobias thinks, you know, that's it. It's time to crack on. And with that, going into this next corner, he makes the move. slides by. No point fighting it. It's actually a very common tactic in endurance racing, just to switch positions, even when everything's okay, but just to kind of like request the driver in front to swap. I think you'll see this happen ahead in a moment with Tobias and Ramon. Going through this corner here now, and you'll see Ramon look behind. Tobias is keen to swap. Ramon points him through. Tobias feels like he's got the kart that can lead the way a bit better, and it's a good tactic. Unfortunately, we get to a point, and you're going to see shortly, where things are going to go downhill quite rapidly. I'll wait to see if you can notice. You may have noticed a little bit at that corner here, but going into this corner, I just can't turn right anymore. I'm just understeering massively around right-handers, and as you can see, I didn't know whether that was a blip, whether it was a one-time thing, but we carry on for now. We pretend we didn't see it happen. Got to keep up the concentration, got to drive perfectly. And as you can see, I just cannot turn right. It feels wrong, the kart feels wrong. There is still a long time left in this race. If we look at the timer now, it was still ages, like 25 minutes at least. And we are losing time quickly, and it is not looking good. I'm actually quite worried, but at this point, and even more so, I'm now starting to get oversteer around left-handers and understeer around right-handers. So obviously I don't know what's happening at this point. I didn't feel like I had any great impact that would have caused that to happen. We know that the curbs are very violent around this track, but I am just struggling to turn right. Whether that would be, well, obviously at the time, what was going through my head? Well, just track rod bent. Is the tyre about to come off? The last thing I wanted was the tyre to come off around a fast corner, and I smash into the barriers. I just felt so mentally ill, but not mentally ill, but it was, my brain was fried at this point. It was very physically draining, very mentally draining. Here we have fellow countryman Sean Briley coming past now. I point at him to go through. I've just lost a stupid amount of time, and I'm not going anywhere fast. Otherwise, we were the top running Brit at the time before the kart breakage. You know, we were doing pretty well, but now it's a decline for us. Obviously, I'm trying to get used to driving the kart in this different way. Just so much understeer, and it just drags. Like while you're turning right, the kart is just dragging in that position. It's slowing down a lot. I'm turning right as hard as I can, and it's just not working. I'm just understeering off, and I knew something was wrong. At this point, I'm thinking, do I retire? Do I just forget it? Because this is not fun. It doesn't feel right. And I'm not saying in a sense that giving up. I'm obviously already in no man's land now by this point. I'm pretty ill. It's a kart that's broken. I'm losing positions like you won't believe. It won't turn. There's a lot going through my mind after a very busy week and not feeling 100%. So I decided to pit. Michael had also decided to pit. And I'm still haven't decided at this point, do I just stop, or do I request a spare, or what should I do? And I didn't know what to do, and then I decided I'll carry on. But at least we've got this second stop done. I didn't want to carry on. Yeah, I was thinking for a long time. Obviously Michael's wondering what's happened there, because he saw me get past him earlier in the race, and now I'm just falling back, and I just basically tell him turning right is a no-no in this kart. And away we go to carry on the race of misery for me. You wouldn't have thought that, would you? The bright sunshine in Portugal. It literally only just came out behind Ruben and the blue and white driver, so even after all that time loss, we still came out ahead of them. Well, oh, sorry, just behind them. You know, it would have been very cool to see where I would have been if that was not to happen. If this didn't happen, I would have been very intrigued to see where I would have finished. It would have been very cool. And even George Suarez is just a little bit further down the road. It's a shame. Because obviously you spend all week getting to this moment, getting to the final. And of course the karts at this point, they've gone through a lot of intensive, a big intensive week. They've raced on every single kart's raced every day apart from one. And yeah, we move on to the last lap now, because I tell you what, it was a very lonely race by that point. I had the leaders catch up to me, nearly lap me, but they decided to do their second stop, so I managed to avoid that. But here I was just driving around, kind of doing my own thing, a bit of a Sunday drive really. I'd got used to the kart by this point, driving the way it had. I'm trying to look at the start-finish line to see the drivers crossing the line to finish. And sure enough, it was John Devalli who ended up winning everything. Winning overall. He, I mean, obviously with the kart polarity not being great, he had some luck, but it was clear in the match races that he was still fastest of them all. And he very much deserved to win. He's definitely a deserving winner. And obviously Dennis Holler won the actual final race, but it was John Devalli won it on points. And yeah, them two drivers were ahead of the, well, just in a different league compared to everyone else. Well, we're getting to these last few corners now. Last few corners of the championship for me, for everyone, for the officials. And it was a tough week. It was really fun to race abroad. And I was really glad and really happy that I could record all of it. And I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you enjoyed watching this. And I look forward to trying another race abroad again soon.